A poor student married a 71-year-old wealthy woman. 7 days later, he was shocked to realize that. A gray sky loomed over the small college town in Texas, its streets slick with rain. Mark Davis trudged along the sidewalk, his backpack slung over one shoulder, his face etched with worry. At 23, he was juggling his final year of law school, a part-time job, and an avalanche of debts left by his late father. The world seemed to close in tighter every day. His phone buzzed in his pocket, snapping him out of his thoughts. "Mark Davis speaking," he answered. A composed, authoritative voice responded. "Mr. Davis, this is Eleanor Brooks. I'd like to meet with you. It's regarding your financial situation." Mark frowned. "I'm sorry, who are you? How do you know about?" "I know enough," she interrupted smoothly. "Let's meet at Brooks Bistro, 7 p.m. It's important." The call ended before Mark could protest. Confused but intrigued, he made his way to the upscale cafe. The rain fell harder as he arrived, his jacket doing little to keep him dry. Stepping inside, he was greeted by warm lighting and the aroma of fresh coffee. At a corner table sat Eleanor Brooks, a striking woman with silver hair styled impeccably, dressed in a tailored suit that radiated wealth. "Mark," she greeted, gesturing for him to sit. Her tone was calm yet commanding. Mark hesitated before taking the seat opposite her. "Mrs. Brooks, what's this about?" "Straight to the point." "Good," she said, sipping her tea. "Mark, I know about your debts. The ones your father left behind. I know you're barely scraping by. I'm here to offer a solution." Mark's brows furrowed. "And what would that be?" She set down her cup, her piercing blue eyes meeting his. "Marry me." The words hung in the air, heavy and surreal. Mark blinked, sure he'd misheard. "Excuse me." "You heard me," she said, her voice steady. "This isn't about romance. It's a business arrangement. I'll pay off all your debts, ensure your financial security, and in return, you'll be my husband." Mark let out a disbelieving laugh. "You're serious? Why me? You don't even know me." Eleanor leaned forward slightly. "Exactly. You're young, unattached, and desperate enough to consider this. I don't need love, Mark. I need a companion. Someone to share my name, my estate, and nothing more. Think of it as a contract." Mark shook his head, his mind racing. "This is insane. What's in it for you?" Her expression softened for the first time. "I've spent my life alone, Mark. I have no children, no family left. I want companionship, even if it's just for appearances. And I want control of my legacy. A husband will help solidify that." He stood abruptly, the chair scraping the floor. "I can't, I need time to think." "Of course," she replied coolly. "But don't take too long. The offer doesn't stand forever." Mark walked home in a daze, the rain soaking through his clothes. That night he sat at the kitchen table with his mother, her pale face etched with worry. The cost of her treatments had drained them both, and his younger sister's tuition loomed like a dark cloud. "Mark," his mother said softly, after he explained Eleanor's proposition, "I know it sounds unthinkable, but if she's willing to help, maybe it's worth considering." Mark stared at his hands, torn between his pride and his desperation. "You're asking me to marry a woman I don't love, just to solve our problems?" "I'm asking you to save yourself," she said, her voice trembling. "To save us." The following morning, Mark returned to the bistro. Eleanor was already there, her demeanor as calm and composed as before. "You've decided?" she asked, not looking up from her tablet. Mark took a deep breath. "I'll do it." She smiled faintly, setting down her tablet. "Good. The arrangements will be made immediately." A week later, Mark stood in a small courthouse, dressed in a suit Eleanor had provided. The ceremony was quiet, witnessed only by Eleanor's lawyer and a notary. As they exchanged vows, Mark couldn't shake the unease in his chest. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Eleanor turned to him with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Welcome to your new life, Mr. Davis." As they left the courthouse, rain drizzling once more, Mark looked at his reflection in a puddle and wondered, have I just saved my family or sold my soul? The gates to Eleanor Brooks' estate creaked open as Mark's cab rolled up the long driveway. The house loomed ahead, a sprawling mansion that could easily pass for a museum. Its towering columns and pristine stone facade exuded old money, but its windows seemed dark and lifeless. Mark stepped out, suitcase in hand, feeling like a visitor in someone else's dream, or perhaps nightmare. Eleanor greeted him in the foyer, her demeanor as polished as ever. "Welcome, Mr. Davis," she said, the formal address sending a shiver down Mark's spine. I trust you'll find everything to your satisfaction. Dinner is at 7. He nodded mutely, following a housekeeper who led him to his room. It was opulent, with a king-sized bed, antique furnishings, and floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked manicured gardens. Despite its luxury, the room felt cold, as if untouched by human warmth. That evening, Mark sat stiffly at the long dining table. Eleanor was at the other end, dressed impeccably in a silk blouse and pearls. The food was extravagant, prepared by a chef he hadn't seen yet, served by staff who moved silently. "I trust you're settling in," Eleanor said, cutting into her filet mignon with surgical precision. "It's different," Mark replied cautiously. "This place is huge. Feels like I'll get lost." Eleanor smirked. "You'll get used to it. Or you won't. Either way, you're here." Mark bristled at her bluntness. "You didn't mention much about your late husband before." Eleanor's knife paused mid-cut. She dabbed her mouth with a napkin before speaking. "He was a businessman, like your father. Their paths crossed once or twice." Her tone darkened. "But as you might imagine, not all encounters end well." Mark's pulse quickened. "What do you mean?" She looked at him, her eyes sharp. "Let's just say, unfinished business has a way of lingering." She picked up her glass of wine. "But that's in the past. You'll soon understand why I chose you." Her cryptic words left Mark uneasy. After dinner, he wandered the halls of the estate. The house was eerily quiet, save for the faint creak of floorboards underfoot. He passed several locked doors, their brass handles gleaming in the dim light. Each one seemed to whisper secrets he wasn't meant to know. As the days passed, Mark grew more unsettled. The staff avoided eye contact, speaking in hushed tones when they thought he wasn't listening. He overheard snippets of conversations that made his stomach twist. Why him? Does he even know? She never does anything without a reason. He'll figure it out eventually. They always do. One evening, while pacing the library, Mark noticed Eleanor's desk. Papers were strewn across its surface, along with a small, ornate key. It gleamed under the desk lamp, its intricate design catching his eye. His gaze darted around the room. No one was there. Heart pounding, he reached for it. The key was heavier than he expected, cool to the touch. Mark's mind raced. Could this be for one of the locked doors? He glanced toward the hallway, where shadows danced against the walls. His breath quickened as he slipped the key into his pocket. That night, lying in his luxurious but suffocating room, Mark turned the key over in his hands. A million questions swirled in his mind, but one loomed above all. What is Eleanor hiding, and why had she really chosen him? The mansion was shrouded in stillness when Mark crept down the hall. The key felt like a lead weight in his pocket, its cool surface pressing against his thigh. His pulse quickened as he approached the door he had noticed earlier, its ornate handle gleaming faintly in the moonlight streaming through the windows. Glancing over his shoulder, Mark turned the key in the lock. The soft click reverberated in the silence, sending a chill down his spine. Slowly, he pushed the door open. The room was a time capsule, frozen in another era. Dusty furniture and faded wallpaper surrounded him. Photographs in tarnished silver frames lined a table, their images capturing happier times, Eleanor as a young woman, a man who must have been her late husband, and another couple Mark didn't recognize. But it was the stack of papers on the desk that caught his attention. Mark flipped through them, his eyes widening. Legal documents detailed failed business deals between Eleanor's husband and Mark's father. A particular letter, written in sharp, slanted handwriting, accused Mark's father of fraud. "You ruined everything. My family was left with nothing because of your lies." His breath hitched when he noticed the last page, a marriage license. His name and Eleanor's stared back at him, stark against the paper. It was dated weeks before the wedding, far earlier than he'd known. On the desk lay an old leather-bound diary. Mark hesitated, then opened it. The entries were Eleanor's, revealing a calculated plan to trap Mark in a marriage that would fulfill her ultimate goal, to settle old scores. "I will take everything from him, just as his father did to me. He will be my pawn." Mark froze as the door creaked behind him. "Enjoying yourself?" Eleanor's voice was icy, cutting through the shadows like a blade. He spun around, guilt and fear writ large on his face. "Eleanor, You thought you'd find answers here?" She stepped into the room, her silhouette sharp against the dim light from the hall. Curiosity killed the cat, Mark. "What do you think you're doing?" His voice was low but firm. "Why did you really marry me? Is this about my father? Is this some kind of revenge?" Eleanor's eyes hardened, her usual composed facade cracking. It's not your place to ask questions, Mark. Just do what you're told, and you'll leave this marriage better off than you started. Isn't that enough for you? Mark's fists clenched. Enough. You've lied to me, manipulated me. This isn't a marriage, it's a trap. Eleanor's lips curled into a faint smile, one that didn't reach her eyes. A trap, is it? Maybe you should have thought twice before signing those papers. She stepped closer, her tone venomous. You may think you're smart, Mark, but you're just like your father, blind to the damage you cause until it's too late. Mark glared at her, the weight of his father's legacy crushing him anew. If you hated him so much, why take it out on me? I had nothing to do with what he did to your family. Eleanor stared at him for a long moment, the silence stretching like a taut string. Finally, she turned on her heel. You're in over your head, Mark. Stay out of matters that don't concern you. With that, she left the room, her footsteps fading down the hall. Later that night, Mark lay wide awake in bed, his mind racing. Eleanor's words haunted him, but so did the documents and diary. Why had she gone to such lengths to entangle him in her schemes? Was it really just about revenge? His thoughts were interrupted by the faint sound of Eleanor's voice. He slipped out of bed and crept toward her study, pressing his ear against the door. Make sure the transfer is complete, Eleanor said, her tone sharp and commanding. We can't let him back out now. Time is running out. Mark's blood ran cold. Whatever was happening, he was in deeper than he'd ever imagined. Mark sat alone in the grand library, his mind a whirlpool of fear and confusion. Eleanor's cryptic words and the damning contents of the locked room made it clear. He was in over his head. The once imposing estate now felt like a gilded prison, its luxurious trappings concealing dark secrets. That evening, Mark approached Mr. Harris, the estate's head butler, a man whose calm demeanor suggested he'd seen and heard more than he let on. Mark, Mr. Harris, I need your help. Something isn't right here. The older man regarded him with a steady gaze, his hands clasped behind his back. Mr. Harris, I was wondering how long it would take before you came to me. Mark, you know something, don't you? About Eleanor, about all of this. Mr. Harris hesitated before speaking. You're not the first young man to be drawn into Eleanor's world, Mark. She's clever, resourceful, and ruthless when it comes to her goals. My advice? Watch your back. Mark's chest tightened. Why are you still here if you know what she's capable of? Mr. Harris's expression softened, a flicker of regret passing across his face. Some of us don't have the luxury of walking away. Determined to find a way out, Mark began devising a plan. He reached out to a trusted friend from law school, Peter, under the guise of catching up. Mark, Peter, hypothetically, if someone signed a contract under coercion or false pretenses, is there any way to void it? Peter, hypothetically, yes, but it depends on the evidence. Why? Are you in some kind of trouble? Mark deflected. Just a class project I'm working on. Thanks, man. The next few days, Mark carefully searched Eleanor's office whenever she was away, hoping to uncover something that could explain her obsession with his father. Late one night, as he rifled through her desk, he found an envelope addressed to his father. The letter was a scathing condemnation, written by Eleanor herself. It accused Mark's father of embezzlement, fraud, and deceit that had led to the financial ruin of Eleanor's family, and ultimately the death of her husband. You left us with nothing. My husband's heart couldn't take the stress, and he's gone because of you. I will see to it that your family pays for what you've done. Mark's stomach churned. Eleanor's actions weren't just about reclaiming her fortune, they were about revenge, fueled by years of pain and anger. Returning the letter to its hiding place, Mark resolved to act. He couldn't allow Eleanor to use him as a tool for her vendetta. That night he began mapping out possible escape routes from the estate. But Eleanor's sharp instincts caught wind of his unease. The next morning she found him in the breakfast room, her icy presence cutting through the quiet. Eleanor, you've been busy, haven't you? Mark froze, his spoon halfway to his mouth. I don't know what you're talking about. Eleanor smiled coldly. Don't play coy with me, Mark. If you think you can outsmart me, you're sorely mistaken. I've dealt with far craftier opponents than you. Mark swallowed hard, trying to keep his voice steady. I don't know what you're accusing me of, but I'm not doing anything wrong. Eleanor leaned closer, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. If you betray me, you'll wish you hadn't. Remember that. She straightened and left the